You're just another washed-up soldier looking for relevance. Trump sneered, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. As gasps erupted from the packed auditorium, the Veterans for America Summit in Dallas was supposed to be a celebration of patriotism and unity. But the moment Donald Trump took the stage, it became a battleground of ego and ideology. Flanked by advisors and soaking in the roar of half the crowd, Trump waved and flashed his signature smirk. "Let's be honest," he continued, pacing slowly. "I've done more for veterans than any president before me. I rebuilt the VA. I stood up to foreign threats. And I didn't waste time losing pointless wars. There were a few cheers, but they were drowned out by a tense silence. The atmosphere crackled. At the back of the room, a hand slowly rose. It was steady, deliberate. The man attached to it stood as if carved from granite, tall, sharp-eyed, bearing the quiet dignity of someone who'd seen too much and bragged about none of it. His name? Captain Elias Grant. A 15-year Army combat veteran with 3 deployments under his belt and a Bronze Star that he never mentioned. Today, he wore nothing flashy. Just a plain black jacket, a faded American flag pin, and eyes that said he wasn't here for applause. Trump pointed mockingly. "You got something to say, General Patton?" "I do," Elias replied, voice cool and steady. "You talk about veterans like we're political pawns. We didn't fight for your headlines. We fought for each other. And you—" "Oh, spare me the emotional lecture," Trump interrupted, rolling his eyes. "I've heard it all before. You people come back broken, complain about the country, and expect medals for breathing." The room gasped again, this time louder. Murmurs spread. Phones were lifted. Live streams were now being shared in real time. But Elias didn't flinch. He stepped closer to the stage, locking eyes with Trump. "Respectfully, Mr. Trump, if you cared about veterans, you'd remember their names instead of using them as sound bites." Trump leaned on the podium, smirking again. "You think you're smarter than me? Stronger? What, because you held a gun in the desert? Big deal. I ran the world's biggest economy." Elias's voice dropped an octave. "Then tell me, sir, do you remember what happened on July 14th, 2017? Trump blinked. The crowd hushed. Even the camera crews paused. "What?" Trump asked, voice a little quieter. "What are you talking about?" Elias didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his jacket and held up a single, sealed envelope. No markings. Just a red wax seal and the initials DT etched faintly into it. Trump's eyes narrowed. "I was there," Elias said. "I know what happened. I know what you signed. And I know who died because of it." Now the silence was deafening. The atmosphere flipped from entertainment to suspicion. The former president, usually unshakable, tugged at his collar. "You're bluffing," Trump snapped. "I'm not," Elias replied. "But if you'd like, I'll open this. Right here. Right now." For the first time that evening, Donald Trump said nothing. The entire auditorium leaned forward as if held by invisible strings. And then Elias spoke again. Slowly, "But I'll ask you one more time. Do you remember July 14th? Trump's lips parted, but no words came out. The veteran isn't here to argue. He's here to reveal a truth that could shake everything, even the legacy of a former president. Trump's jaw tightened, but the smirk he usually wore like armor was slipping, inch by inch. "You're bluffing?" he repeated, louder this time, as if volume could restore dominance. "I never signed anything like that. Whatever you're holding, it's fake. You're just another nobody trying to get famous off my name." Elias didn't move. His hand still held the envelope, but it was his eyes, steady, unwavering, that gripped the room. "You said I was washed up," Elias said calmly. "Let me tell you about what happened that week. July 10th, 2017, we landed in Helmand Province, Afghanistan. 6 of us. Operation Phantom Viper. Classified deployment. No one knew we were there except Central Command and a signature from someone who had the authority to send us. That signature was yours." Trump opened his mouth, then hesitated. He glanced toward a man standing near the stage, an aide in a gray suit with panicked eyes and a hand already tapping his phone. "You're lying," Trump growled. Elias took a deep breath. 2 days in, we realized something was wrong. The target wasn't who you claimed it was. We tried to abort. Command went dark. We fought our way out, but only 3 of us made it home. One bled out in a broken Humvee. The other, Sergeant Miguel Reyes, died covering our exit. 23 years old. The crowd was now dead silent. Reporters stared wide-eyed. Even the most die-hard Trump loyalists were beginning to shift in their seats. And you, Elias continued, went on national television and said we were never there, that the mission didn't exist. You denied it to protect a deal you'd made with a local warlord, one that cost American lives. Trump scoffed, waving his hand like he was swatting a fly. You expect anyone to believe that? Where's the proof? Elias opened the envelope slowly. Inside, a single audio recorder. He placed it on the moderator's table and pressed play. The room filled with a voice. Trump's voice. No, keep it off the books. If anything goes south, I was never briefed. Got it. The clip was short, but unmistakable. Trump turned pale. Where'd you get that? He snapped. I told you, Elias said. I was there. Reyes sent a final transmission from his helmet cam. He didn't make it out, but his footage did. The DOD buried it. But I kept a copy. The murmurs returned, louder now. Phones buzzed. Live streams exploded online. Trump tried to laugh, but it was hollow. This is a setup. You doctored that. You people are good at fake news. But this is slander. Elias stepped closer to the stage, calm as ever. I'm not here to slander. I'm here to speak for the ones who can't. Trump's face twisted. You're pathetic, trying to make yourself a hero with some sob story. What do you want? A medal? A handshake? Elias finally raised his voice. Not shouting, but firm and thunderous. I want accountability. I want the truth out there. And I want people to understand what kind of choices leaders make when they think no one's watching. The moderator, silent until now, finally spoke, his voice trembling. Mr. Trump, do you wish to respond to the recording? Trump turned toward the cameras. He opened his mouth, then looked at the sea of eyes watching him, waiting, judging. I have no comment at this time, he muttered. But Elias wasn't done. He leaned into the mic and asked one last question. Do you remember the name of even one man who died on that mission? Trump said nothing. The silence was louder than any answer. He came for a debate. But now the veteran holds the truth, the proof, and the attention of an entire nation. For a moment, it felt like time had stopped. The audio recording had ended. The veteran's words still hung in the air like smoke. And Donald Trump, usually fast with a comeback, a jab, a crowd-pleasing taunt, stood still, not stunned, but calculating, quiet, dangerous. The moderator swallowed hard. Captain Elias Grant, he said, voice low, are you alleging that the former president knowingly approved a covert mission and then denied its existence, resulting in the loss of American lives? Elias didn't blink. Not alleging, stating. Trump snapped back into motion. You know what? I'm done with this circus, he barked, stepping from the podium and pulling off his mic. You want to play war hero? Fine. But you and I both know nothing's black and white in foreign policy. You make deals. You take risks. People die. That was the first real admission. The audience caught it. The cameras caught it. And Elias, who had been holding back, finally walked to the front of the stage. You didn't take a risk, Elias said, voice trembling for the first time. You made a deal with a known arms trafficker. He traded you silence in exchange for letting his faction retake a village full of civilians. My team was sent in to sabotage that deal. We weren't briefed on your side of it. We walked into a slaughter. Trump froze. You think I'm bluffing? Elias asked again. Then let me read this. From his jacket, he pulled out a second sheet, dog-eared and smudged. He held it up to the cameras. This, he said, is a casualty report filed under Phantom Viper, a mission the Pentagon denies existed. 6 men deployed, 3 confirmed Kia, 2 injured, 1 survivor, me. But someone had to file this before it was buried. and the name stamped at the top for emergency authorization. He pointed directly at Trump. Donald J. Trump. A woman in the audience stood up, hand over her mouth. Reporters were scrambling. The moderator tried to speak but failed. Even the Secret Service near the doors seemed confused, unsure of whether this was a scandal or a security threat. Trump stepped forward slowly. His voice dropped to a low, almost conspiratorial whisper. "You don't know what you're doing, son." Elias didn't flinch. "You're right. I don't know what it's like to be rich enough to hide bodies with paperwork. But I do know what it's like to hold a dying man's hand while he asks if his mom will get his flag." The crowd audibly groaned. Trump looked at the envelope, at the recorder, at the casualty sheet, and then, for the first time, his expression changed. Not anger, not arrogance, but fear. Elias took a deep breath and turned to the crowd. "I didn't come here to fight him," he said. "I came here because we've let too many powerful men get away with rewriting history to protect their pride. And I won't let Miguel Reyes be erased." As he walked back to his seat, applause began to build. Slow at first, then thunderous. But just before Elias sat down, a reporter stood up and shouted a question. "Captain Grant, if this is true, if everything you've said is verifiable, why now? Why speak up after all these years?" Elias turned, voice heavy with purpose. "Because 3 days ago, I got a letter from Reyes's mother. She wrote, 'I heard Trump speaking at the summit. If you ever get the chance, make him remember my son.'" He looked directly at Trump. "I kept my promise." Trump stared at the floor, unmoving. The truth is no longer hidden. But as the world watches, what will Trump do next? And can this secret really stay buried any longer? The applause had faded. The cameras remained live. But Donald Trump hadn't moved. He sat back down, no longer the firebrand speaker, no longer the untouchable icon of bravado. Just a man surrounded by noise that was no longer cheering. His face, pale, drawn, betrayed something rare, doubt. Behind the scenes, his team scrambled. 2 aides leaned in, whispering frantically. One pressed a phone to his ear, muttering, "We need to kill the feed. Now." But it was too late. The clip had gone viral within minutes. Hashtag Phantom Viper, hashtag Reyes was real, and hashtag Trump knew were already trending worldwide. The media had smelled blood, and it was pouring. In the wings, Elias sat, still. Not gloating, not triumphant, just heavy, like the truth had cost him something, again. Backstage, a former White House strategist rushed up to Trump. "Sir, we need to respond. Deny, spin, blame the Pentagon. Say the audio's fake, the paper's doctored. Anything." Trump didn't speak. "Sir?" the strategist repeated, more urgently. Finally, Trump stood, walked to the mirror on the dressing room wall, and stared at himself. "You know what the real problem is?" he said quietly. The room went still. "I didn't think anyone remembered that op. I figured the guys were ghosts. We wrote it off, buried it under classified crap. Because I needed that oil deal. And nobody was going to vote for a president who backed out because a few boots got dirty." The strategist stared. "You're admitting it now?" Trump turned. "To you? Sure. Out there." He pointed toward the stage. "Not a chance. But the audio? I'll say it's AI. Deepfake. Plant story about Elias having a vendetta. Dig up something on him. Hell, maybe we spin the Reyes kid as unstable. Give the base something to chew on." The strategist hesitated. "That might not work this time. He's not political. He's not running for anything. He's just human. And people are tired of ghosts being silenced." Trump paused. His eyes flickered, for the first time, with something that looked like regret. "I didn't think it'd come back. I thought they'd all stay dead." Silence. He sat down, almost whispering now. "I remember Reyes. He was the one with the bandana. He smiled after the briefing. Saluted me like he believed in something." A long pause. "I sent them into that storm," he murmured. "For a damn handshake with a warlord who double-crossed us anyway. I signed their death warrant. And I never even read the after-action report." The strategist leaned in. "Then why not say it? Come clean. Trump looked up bitterly. Because men like me don't survive truth. We survive spin. Back in the auditorium, Elias stood once more. The moderator returned to the mic. Captain Grant, we've just received confirmation from 2 retired generals who served under CENTCOM in 2017. They're verifying your story. One's willing to testify on record. The audience gasped. Suddenly, a stagehand rushed over to the moderator and handed him a phone. He read the screen and his face paled. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just received word that Sergeant Miguel Reyes's helmet footage has been independently authenticated. It was never archived in official Pentagon servers. This is now a federal matter. Gasps rippled across the room. And then another bombshell. Captain Grant, the moderator continued slowly, you're being summoned to Washington. The Senate Intelligence Committee wants your testimony in a public hearing. Within 72 hours. Elias nodded. Trump reappeared on stage briefly, his face stoic. The 2 men locked eyes again. No words, but Elias could see it. Deep in Trump's eyes. Regret. Not for what he did, but for getting caught. The truth is spreading, and power is crumbling. But the final reckoning is just around the corner. Washington buzzed like a disturbed hornet's nest. News vans crowded the Capitol steps. Protesters lined both sides of the plaza. Some waving flags that read, "Justice for Reyes." Others still clinging to red hats and slogans from an era that now felt like history. Inside the Senate hearing room, Captain Elias Grant sat at the witness table. His uniform pressed, his medals neatly displayed, but his face remained humble, determined. Across from him sat a panel of senators, Democrats and Republicans alike. Cameras rolled. America was watching. The committee chair leaned in. Captain Grant, for the record, please state your name and your relation to the mission known as Phantom Viper. Elias spoke clearly. Captain Elias James Grant, U.S. Army, retired. I was the team leader of the 6-man Special Operations Unit deployed to Helmand Province on July 10, 2017, under an order signed by then-President Donald J. Trump. Gasps rippled. The committee members exchanged glances. And what happened on that mission, Captain? Asked a senator. Elias took a breath. We were deployed with faulty intel, under the premise of targeting a high-value terrorist. In truth, we were interfering with a private oil deal negotiated by the president through a third-party warlord. When the deal turned sour, we were cut off. Command went dark. 3 of my men died, one of them, Sergeant Miguel Reyes, managed to record the truth before he sacrificed himself. He pulled out the now-famous document and the recording device. The proof was buried, but I kept it, not for revenge, but because someone had to remember them. Someone had to tell the truth. The committee chair leaned forward. Captain Grant, do you believe the president knowingly put your team in harm's way for personal gain? Yes, Elias said, and then lied to the nation to protect himself. Silence fell like a gavel. In a private viewing room upstairs, Donald Trump watched from behind one-way glass. Alone. His phone buzzed. His legal counsel texting updates, strategists urging him to release a statement, donors withdrawing support by the hour. But he didn't respond. Not yet. On screen, Elias continued. This isn't about politics. It's about people. Miguel Reyes didn't care about polls. He cared about doing the right thing. Even in death, he deserved honesty. The room erupted into applause, not from the senators, but from the public gallery. The sound echoed down the marble halls. A pause. Then the committee chair cleared his throat. In light of this testimony, and the authenticated materials provided, we will be issuing a formal recommendation to the Department of Justice to investigate the conduct of former President Donald J. Trump for gross negligence, obstruction of justice, and the unlawful use of military assets. That was it. The line crossed. Upstairs, Trump exhaled. Slowly. He wasn't a man used to defeat. But this didn't feel like a loss. It felt like exposure. Like the part of him he spent years burying had finally clawed its way to the surface. He stood, quietly. No speeches. No tweets. No escape. Downstairs, Elias stepped away from the table. As he passed the gallery, an older woman stood up. Her hands trembled, her eyes full of tears. "Mrs. Reyes?" he asked softly. She nodded. He reached into his pocket and handed her the medal Miguel was never awarded. "He earned this, and the truth," she sobbed. "Thank you for remembering." As Elias walked into the sunlight outside, reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed, but he said nothing. The truth had already spoken, and for once in America it was louder than power.